Hey everybody. You know, a friend of mine, or one of my fellow fans, talked about something recently, asked a few questions recently, because they talked to another fan about it too. You know, basically wondering, you know, what this one fan said to my fellow fan here, and you'll see probably see who it is when I provide the link to the questions that I'm going to ask you. Basically, this other fan asked this fan, basically said to this fan about 6 months ago, said, hey, if Ben Hurst would have done a story about Sally being roboticized, you wouldn't have said a peep about it. Basically saying that because this person's such a Satayam fan, that if Ben Hurst would have done a story with Sally being roboticized in the cartoon, or even otherwise, that this fan and maybe some other fans wouldn't have made a peep about it. Now, he did answer this other fan back truthfully. Oh no, they did answer this fan back truthfully. But they've recently been thinking it over, and they have a few questions, and I'm going to read these questions off to you guys. The questions are: 1. Do you think Ben Hurst would have had a story about Sally getting roboticized if Satayam went on past season 2, or even in the comic, if he had taken the job when offered? Now right there, that part right there, saying the comic, having a job on the comic when offered, it kind of surprised me. I didn't know about that. But that is a good question. Do you think he would have done it if the show would have gone beyond 2 seasons? The second question is, if it did happen, what would your reaction be? 3. Would you trust Ben Hurst to make it worth our while and not have it be a cheap or lazy writing in the least? 4. Do you believe Ian Flynn will make this story about Mecha Sally worth our while when it's all said and done? Now, their answers... Now, this person's answers are real simple. 1, this is their answers. They say 1, or their answers to their own questions. They say 1, I don't think he would have made one since he was very fond of her, but it was a possibility, especially considering Sonic had a nightmare about it back in season 1, aka episode C, Sonic's Nightmare. 2, truthfully, if it happened when I was a big fan of hers, as I am now, I'd be horrified and even feel a bit betrayed because it would be very painful to watch. 3. Well, to be perfectly honest here, I would not at first because I would hate it so much to see Sally end up that way. However, knowing now what I do know about Ben, I think over time I would trust him because he did have her best interest at heart. It showed whenever I saw an episode of Sally that he had written. I cannot say the same thing about Ian one bit. And answer the 4th question. 4th, one word. The answer to the 4th question, one word: no. I'm sorry, but I don't. The story already is very poorly written and has reduced Sally to a weak and predictable robotic villain. That's why I'm saying when the climax is finally revealed, I'm not expecting anything big or spectacular to happen. It hasn't done anything that's been written well or even intriguing to begin with. It's just a lot of pointless drama, horrific shock value, and constant OOC writing. Alright, and then they say at the end, however, to be fair, I'll admit there's a very slight chance Ian could make me eat my words here and maybe surprise us all with a good ending. But until I see it for myself, I wouldn't bet even a penny on that possibly happening. That was their thoughts, and now they're going to ask what are ours. And honestly, I can't say either way, because we had seen, it's like I said before in previous videos, audio and on camera and all that we had seen this kind of thing before on television. We'd seen it with Cammy in the American animated series of Street Fighter in their 2nd season. We'd seen it before in other situations. even if it's for just one episode or two. And it's been involved, and it's involved Disney shows. It's involved Marvel shows. I mean, take a look at the most famous of all from Marvel, adapted from its comic book origins in different variations, the Phoenix/Dark Phoenix saga. I mean, come on, let's be honest. You know, it's been done before, so I can't say either way. I mean, it would be tolerable, but I'm not really sure. I mean, I can say this. I mean, I'll be totally honest. The difference between Ben Hurst and Ian Flynn is if Ben would have done this, I don't think Ben would have carried it on for most of the season. I'm thinking at the most, not trying to show favoritism or anything, but just looking at experience, that he would probably do maybe 5 episodes. Basically make it an average 5-episode miniseries. That in the end, you could put together as a movie and release onto VHS or in this case DVD. I think that's how he would do it. The only way I can compromise that with what Ian's doing is that with each and every issue, Ian Flynn looks at it as like one part, like one 10-minute or 5-minute part, one 5 to 10 minute part of the of an episode. So basically, like every issue could be like a 5 to 10 minute part. Not saying that it is. So again, like I said, not saying that it is. Not saying that's how he's thinking, but I can only compromise that that's what he's planning. I can only compromise that that's probably how he looks at it when you want to look at when you want to try to compromise and try to equality it up with Ian, you know. So again, I can't say yay or nay about it, you know, but like I said, if you want to look at it from a compromising standpoint, I would have to say maybe that's why, on an equality standpoint, comic issues versus episodes, that I honestly believe that he looks at every issue as a 5 to 10 minute part of an episode. So that's the only way I look at it. So that's the only way I can look at it, folks. I mean, I'm not trying to say, say either way, but again, we've seen this so many times, and yeah, I admit, even some of those people that do defend and say the story's good have admitted that it's dragging on and needs to come to an end. I get that, but I think it's also because the fact that Ian's got so much on his mind. He's doing so much. It's just too much for him. Now speaking of Ian, Ben wasn't the only one that had questions asked about him. Another fan asked questions about Ian. And these are questions that they asked. These are that they asked. They asked, and I'll get into that in another video.